To mitigate this problem, the school routinely organized the school truck to pick and drop students from the Jinja bus park every beginning and end of term. The school had a thick natural forest all around, which was believed to have dangerous wild animals. The school had a vibrant food market, or winnow market, where students would go to buy eats like ripe bananas, roasted and boiled cassava, pancakes, or cabs, mangoes, and oranges. However, all these items were in short supply due to the economic situation then, and it required one to sprint from class to a winnow to be able to partake of any snack. Otherwise, the standard response of the sellers was, "Dona, dona bajikuze," meaning, everything has been bought. Survival was harder for those students who were unable to afford frequent visits to Owino. When the moment of truth struck the unbearable hunger, they had to be brave and go downhill to Kakira sugar plantation through the small paths called salvos. It was a hair-raising experience, given the thickness of the forest and the beliefs. At the sugar plantation, management allowed students to have as much as they could, provided no one carried any sugarcane back to school. It would be a bonanza every time one reached the plantation. Though the sugarcane plantation offered a sanctuary to the very hungry, as the saying goes, not all that glitters is gold. It needed a good measure of hunger, desperation, and willpower to be able to squeeze juice out of those stick-hard sugarcanes. However, within 2 weeks of reporting, there was a big, disruptive strike that rocked the school to its foundation, driving old boys to return. These old boys poured into Mweri to address the students and save the school. Many dignitaries showed up to make these addresses. These included senior commanders from the armed forces, ministers, and other senior public officials. All of them talked to the students, pleading with them not to destroy their school. Most of the visiting dignitaries seemed larger than life, but there was only one whom Nyathirach saw that stood out. He came in a white Land Rover. When it parked, a policeman got out of the vehicle and opened the door, then stiffly saluted a man who emerged solemnly from the car, a tall and smartly dressed government official. The policeman led him to the hall, where he was to meet the teachers and speak to the students. The high tone of both this man's character and stature made a strong impression on Nyathirach. Nyathirach noted that this man seemed to walk around as if a spotlight was shining on his every move. He saw this man as more important than all. After the man's eloquent speech, he left the school as majestically as he arrived. Nyathirach then asked who this gentleman was and how he became so powerful. He was told that the man in question was the District Commissioner, DC, of Jinja. When normal school operations resumed, Nyathirach asked, "How does one become a DC?" In the mind of Nyathirach, he was the most important person who had come to school, even though more powerful government officials at the time had come. This guy inspired him the most, and he decided that he should be a DC. "How do I get there?" Nyathirach asked. "What would someone study to become a DC?" Nyathirach noticed that the DC had the assistant DCs reporting to him. He had the district treasurer, veterinary, medical, agricultural, and education officers reporting to him too. He also had security officers reporting to him. He was the boss of bosses for sure, Nyathirach concluded. "I want to be the boss of bosses," Nyathirach said to himself. This is when Nyathirach decided to become a DC, and he was promptly told that he had to do arts instead of sciences if he wanted to be a DC. You can't just become a medical doctor and leave the hospital to become a DC. No, it doesn't work that way. Go and do the art subjects, literature, divinity, geography, and history to lead you to public administration, a classmate told Nyathirach. He thus made this decision after 2 weeks in the school to become a DC. To set these wheels of ambition in motion, he wrote a letter to his uncle Oketcho, requesting him to come to Mweri to discuss the new data he had just come by. After 4 days, The ever-dutiful Uncle Ochoko received the letter, and by the end of the week, he was in school to see Nyathirach. The two sat to discuss for several hours. At first, Uncle Ochoko resisted, but then relented in the face of Nyathirach's insistence. Okay, I'm not the one going to study. You are the one going to study. Will you bring that position home? He asked Nyathirach. Nyathirach asserted that he would bring the position of DC home. The next thing was to go to the headmaster with his uncle to request for the change. He needed a parent to convince the headmaster, as a student could not do it alone. It turned out that the headmaster did not need much convincing. However, the next week, Nyathirach was in the arts class to begin the journey to become a District Commissioner. He worked towards getting admission to Social Work and Social Administration, BA, SWSA, or BA, Political Science and Public Administration at Makerere University. It was the only university in the country at the time. Upon completing A-level, Nyathirach scored highly, beating the cutoff point and thereby enrolling at Makerere University on government sponsorship, the only way into the university to study social work and social administration, SWSA. At the end of the SWSA course, he had passed with an upper second. His plan was thus taking shape. The Public Service Commission in those days would directly recruit from Makerere University, camping there in June as the students were finalizing their exams. Of all the jobs that dangled before the eyes of expectant students, there was only one job that could ensure Nyathirach ended up as a DC. He applied for that job, which was under the president's office. It was the job of Assistant Secretary/Administrative Officer in the office of the president. The chairman of the Public Service Commission interviewed those interested in the job, and by the end of 2 months, the results were out, and Nyathirach was among the 22 candidates selected for the job. It was the beginning of a journey with many twists and turns, as exciting as always in the story of Nyathirach. A short while after starting this job, Nyathirach took paid study leave to study for a postgraduate diploma in computer science at Makerere University on a program sponsored by the World Bank. It was a newly introduced course, and he was admitted in the 3rd cohort. He was the only social scientist in the cohort. Previously, it had been a preserve of the science-based students.